Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into the latest vlog update here on the Gavin Partridge YouTube channel. So we're going to be having a look at the Ipsos political monitor for this particular video and vlog. So we haven't looked at this for a few months. I think the last one we did was in September. Ipsos, formerly Mori, and Ipsos Mori are our oldest pollster. They've got polling data going all the way back to the early 1980s, actually back 1970s, I think, as well. So, they have a long history of reliable polling in UK general elections. This is the election year, of course, of 2024. We're going to go through the latest political monitor, and we'll be looking at how the voting intention is looking between the major parties, of course. We will also be having a look at the personal ratings between Starmer and also Sunak, and also the various issues and things that people are concerned about. So sit back, rats, enjoy. I shall talk you through the January 2024 Ipsos political monitor. All right, everybody. Ipsos political monitor. In a moment, just say that if you enjoy the vlogs on the channel, then please do like, share and subscribe, and thanks so much everybody for doing that. You can find the link to Ipsos and the political monitor in the description with this video. Now, there are 37 slides that we can look at. We're not going to go through all of them individually, so I do urge you that, if you're interested to go check out this PDF at Ipsos. Okay, so the first thing to get on the table is the headline voting intention, all important, of course. So in January, Ipsos has found that Labour have a lead, significant lead of 22% over the Conservatives. They are on they're on 49% to the Conservatives, 27%. Liberal Democrats are on 7%. Greens on 7%. Others on 9%. That does include Reform. How that works out is that the Conservatives in this poll are up 3 on the previous poll, which of course was in November. We've got Labour up 8% on the previous poll as well. Liberal Democrats are down 6, Greens are down 2, and Reform are down 3. Others are down 1. Now, that's quite interesting as we start this election year. We might be seeing the first signs of a squeeze between the two, a squeeze of the smaller parties by the two major parties. That is something that's very typical in a general election, and the months leading up to a general election, that you will see the two big parties, Labour and Conservatives, squeezing those smaller parties downwards. Exception can be the Liberal Democrats. They can take off a little bit through an election campaign, such as we saw, for example, in 2010. But generally, it's the two big parties that squeeze the smaller parties. So that might be happening here. It could just be that this is an outlier poll, but they are very significant changes, from one month to another, particularly in terms of Labour being up 8%, but also the Conservatives going up 3% is quite significant as well, and the Liberal Democrats going down 6% is also quite significant. So, I'd be cautious about saying that we are starting to see the squeeze on the smaller parties. It is a bit early for that, but it's election year, first month of election year, and we are seeing Labour and Conservative, particularly Labour, up significantly there on the month before, which is quite interesting. I say an overall Labour lead of 22%. So this is how voting intention is looking in terms of the voting intention graph with Ipsos all the way back to 2015. So you can see that the key point in this parliament was sort of autumn 2021, where crossover occurred between Labour and the Conservatives. Labour got a consistent lead. They have been having a consistent lead ever since then. Conservatives sort of flatlining down in the 20s, Labour up in the 40s percent. And as I say, as we begin the year of 2024, January, we find Labour on 49%, Conservatives on 27%. That would lead to an absolute hammering for the Conservatives if that was to be the final voting score on election day. If Labour had a 22% lead, they would get an absolutely enormous majority, probably over 500 seats. Very significant Labour lead there of 22%. Conservatives not really going anywhere fast. And this is how voting intention looks between the parties going all the way back to January 2004, actually. The key period leading up to the 2010 last change election happened just here when a consistent crossover between Labour and the Conservatives occurred. That was around 2008, led up, of course, to the change election of 2010, where the Conservatives replaced the Labour Party. It looks like something similar has happened here in 2021, where we see again Labour with a consistent lead over the Conservatives. So compared to the last change election, which was 2010, it looks kind of similar. In fact, the gap is bigger between Labour and Conservatives than it was between Conservative Labour back in 2008, 2010. Have people definitely decided who they're going to vote for, or could they change their minds? So we see that we've got 48% saying that they've definitely decided, but 49% might change their mind. That is up 6, though, for the people that have definitely decided, and down 4 for the people that may change their mind. So it appears that opinion is hardening. People, as we start the election year, are starting to make up their mind. And again, that could explain, the squeeze that we saw with the smaller parties as well, maybe. But some of the people that were thinking about voting for smaller parties have switched either to Conservatives, particularly to Labour, as we've begun the election year. That might explain why the Conservatives went up 3 on the previous poll and Labour went up a massive 8 on the previous poll. Conservative supporters saying we've got 49% have decided definitely, and 48% may change their mind. Again, that's up 4 for people who've decided against down 3 people who may change their mind. And Labour, we see 51% have definitely decided. That's up 3. 46% may change their mind, down 3. Again, that suggests that there is a hardening, of voting intention as we're moving into this election year. Among Conservative voters, from 2019, we can see that, so this is 2019 Conservative voters, we can see that 50% have definitely decided who they're going to vote for. That's up 9. 47% may change their mind, down 10. That doesn't necessarily mean they voted Conservative this time, just means they voted Conservative last time. And Labour, we've got 57% of 2019 Labour voters saying, 57% saying they've definitely decided, against 41% may change their mind. That's up 3 for definitely decided, against a down 1 for may change their mind. So again, but suggestion is definitely there, but opinion is hardening on who people want to vote for. Okay, so this is how satisfaction with leaders between Starmer and Sunak currently looking. So in this poll for January 2024, 66% of those polled are dissatisfied with Rishi Sunak, and 20% are satisfied with him, giving him a net negative rating of -46, which is pretty bad, particularly as you're starting an election year. The question, by the way, is: are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the way ex-Sunak Starmer is running the country, doing his job as Prime Minister, leader of the opposition? As far as Kier Starmer is concerned, well, 48% are dissatisfied with him. So again, if someone's seen consistently with Starmer, that a significant majority, are dissatisfied with him. He's not overwhelmingly popular by any means. 30% are satisfied with him. The difference, of course, is that greatly more people are dissatisfied with Sunak compared to those that are dissatisfied with Starmer, which of course means that Sunak, out of the two, is by far the most popular. But Starmer is not setting the world alight by any means, and these satisfaction ratings for Keir Starmer probably won't affect the outcome of the election, but they could well spell trouble for when he becomes Prime Minister, because he's already starting off, certainly not overwhelmingly popular. You would probably say a little bit unpopular, and generally the popularity of politicians and leaders and prime ministers only goes south when they actually get into power. So the fact that he's starting off at a relatively, as a relatively unpopular leader of the opposition could spell trouble for him when he becomes Prime Minister. But for now, the focus is on Sunak, and he's much more unpopular than Starmer. In terms of the government, well, the government remains very, very unpopular. 78% are saying that they are dissatisfied with this government, against 13% satisfied with it. That is a net negative rating of -65. By the way, Starmer's net negative rating is -18. Right, so drilling down into that a little bit, we can see on the graph here, but 66% are dissatisfied with Rishi Sunak, 20% are satisfied with him, 14% don't know, net negative rating of -46. Among Conservative supporters, we find that he's got 55% satisfied against 35% dissatisfied. So a majority of Conservative supporters are satisfied with him, but of course he's all of the other voters, and including like floating voters, that he's much more unpopular with. This is how it's doing in terms of past prime ministers, all the way back to, I believe, Margaret Thatcher. So he's down here. He's right at the very depths of unpopularity. He's down actually with Gordon Brown. So that red line just there is Gordon Brown's satisfaction rating. So he's more or less on a par with Gordon Brown actually for this point in both of their tenures. Again, of course, Gordon Brown was the last Prime Minister who actually lost a general election. We've got Tony Blair up here. Look how popular he was. And David Cameron as well is the blue line just there. He was pretty popular through most of his term, although he did go for a period of unpopularity during the middle part of his first parliament, around 2012, 2013. All of the other leaders are just here. So of course, we've got, so that's wrong. So this blue line just here is Mrs. Thatcher, I think. That's Mrs. Thatcher just there. So, David Cameron, where will he be? Here's the blue dashed line. So he's down here, actually. So, we've got Tony Blair up there, Mrs. Thatcher just there, David Cameron just there. And then the shorter range, shorter lived prime ministers are just here as well. So what we can see, Liz Truss, by the way, just there, coming in and collapsing right from the moment she takes office. Right, okay. So as far as satisfaction with the government is concerned, this is how. Again, the red line here is going to be Tony Blair's government. The blue line is going to be Margaret Thatcher's government. Rishi is down there, so his government is that the very nadir of unpopularity as well. Really there. Satisfaction with Prime Minister in the in January of an election year. This is quite an interesting poll, a part of the poll, which is something we haven't looked at for, I don't think. So there's Sunak, of course, 20% satisfied with him, 66% dissatisfied with him. That compares to Theresa May in January 2019, because she wasn't Prime Minister for the 2019 general election, that's Boris Johnson, but she was at 33% satisfied, 58% dissatisfied. And in 2017, before the 2017 general election, Theresa May was on 45% satisfied, 39% dissatisfied. Now, you look at that and think Theresa May would have won very nicely, convincingly, the 2017 general election in June 2017. Actually, she didn't. Actually, she didn't win that election convincingly. She did win it, but she ended up with a hung parliament, I think, which tells you that sometimes, election campaigns can make the difference. We've got David Cameron in January of 2015 on 41% satisfied, 52% dissatisfied. So he wasn't doing too bad at that point. Gordon Brown, before he lost office in January 2010, was on 33%. Dissatisfied, 33% satisfied, 59% dissatisfied. Tony Blair, though, before the 2005 election, was very similar actually. 33% were satisfied, 57% dissatisfied. So Brown lost the election on that share, and Blair won the 2005 election on that share, albeit with a greatly reduced majority, but still pretty convincing majority of around 60 seats. In 2001, Tony Blair was on 47% satisfied, 44% dissatisfied. He was very popular, of course, at that point in his tenure. John Major, before he lost office in 1997, in January 1997, he was on 31% satisfied, 61% dissatisfied. But that looks kind of similar to where Rishi is. Actually, Rishi's doing worse. But that looks a little bit alarming for Rishi Sunak supporters. Before the 92 general election, the big upset, of course, of the Conservative win in spring of 92. So the writing was on the wall, though, for that, because in January 1992, 51% were actually satisfied with John Major, and 38% were dissatisfied for him. So although the polls were giving Labour a lead at that point at the beginning of 1992, the personal ratings between Major and Neil Kinnock, they were giving a heads up for what was probably going to happen in the coming election. We've got Mrs. Thatcher being in January 1987 for the 87 landslide to 37% satisfied, 56% dissatisfied. So you would look at that and wouldn't really think that Margaret Thatcher was going to get another landslide majority there, given that her net satisfaction rating was at -19 there. And then we've got also Thatcher in 1983 at 49% satisfied, 45% dissatisfied, giving her a net satisfaction rating of +4%. So, of course, the two key ones to notice are going to be John Major in 97 before the 97 change election, and also Gordon Brown in 2010 before the 2010 change election. They were the two change elections, before becoming what is like to be change election. Rishi Sunak is actually doing worse than Gordon Brown and John Major were before those two change elections of 97 and also 2010. This is how Keir Starmer is doing. So again, as we've been saying, in these videos over the past year or two, he is not overwhelmingly popular. More people are dissatisfied with him than are satisfied with him. 48% are dissatisfied, 30% dissatisfied. The only saving grace for him, he's got a net negative rating therefore -18. The only saving grace for him is that Rishi Sunak is much more unpopular at the moment than he is. Kier is popular though with Labour supporters, so 54% are satisfied with him, 30% are dissatisfied with him. This is how we're doing in terms of leaders of the opposition. So he's right there with Neil Kinnock. This is Neil Kinnock's line just here. And so we see that Kier is right on a par with him. We've got Tony Blair up here when he was leader of the opposition from 94 to 97. And then we've got David Cameron just here. They were the two most popular leaders of the opposition since the 1980s. We don't see Keir Starmer right down in the depths of unpopularity. So we've got Michael Ford, he was a very, very unpopular leader of the opposition. We've got also Jeremy Corbyn just here. He wasn't, he was in the pack early on in his tenure as a leader of the opposition, but he did become very, very unpopular later on. And we've also got sort of William Hague, I think, which is one of the blue dashed lines just here. Ian Duncan Smith is somewhere through there as well. So, Starmer's right in the centre of the pack, and he is there with beliefs of the opposition that didn't make it as Prime Minister, to be honest. These are the two that made it: Tony Blair, David Cameron. The rest of the leaders of the opposition didn't make it, and that includes, of course, Neil Kinnock. And Starmer is right in the middle of the pack with them. So, in normal circumstances, if there was a popular Prime Minister for the Conservatives, then Starmer would probably be in trouble, to be honest. But the fact is, although he's not particularly popular, he is much more popular, if you like, than the incumbent, than the Prime Minister. Davey, he's pretty unpopular as well. So 35% dissatisfied, 20% satisfied. He's not setting the world alight. As far as economic optimism is concerned, this might be a little bit encouraging for the government, because 50% now are expecting the economy to get worse, which isn't great, but of course it's much better than like the near 80% that we had back in 2022, but we're expecting the economy to get worse. So it does appear that, people might be starting to get a little bit more optimistic about the economy. But on the other hand, we've only got 24% saying they're expecting the economy to improve, and 21% are expecting it to stay the same. So at the moment, although the amount of people expect the economy to get worse over the next 12 months is reducing, that hasn't yet translated into an increase in the amount of people expecting the economy to improve. Nevertheless, that could be a slightly encouraging finding for the government. This is how the economic optimism index is looking from 1998. So we're just here. So we're not as pessimistic about the economy as we was back in 2022. Nevertheless, we're at quite a lowish sort of level. And this is where it was in 2015. So, when the Conservatives were going to win the 2015 election. This is where we was with economic optimism, I think back around 2009, but then we went into 2010 and economic optimism dropped quite a bit. Generally, you'll notice that we are quite pessimistic in terms of what we expect the economy to do throughout most of the period from 1998, including like the glory years for Labour, when Labour were at peak popularity. Even then, people were generally more pessimistic about the economy than they were optimistic about it. So generally, we are pretty, we're a pretty pessimistic bunch, I think, a lot of the time when it comes to economic optimism. These are the issues that are going to decide the next election. So top rated issue at the moment is the NHS, healthcare, NHS hospitals. 28% are that would be the issue that will help them decide. We've got 23% saying inflation, the cost of living. That could be a little bit of an encouraging finding for the government, because that is down 8% on the amount of people saying that inflation and the cost of living are going to be their sort of key issue in the general election. Still, the second rated issue though, Labour will be pleased to see the NHS at 28%, as the most rated issue. That's always a strong issue for Labour. In terms of the third rated issue, that's the economic situation. That's unchanged on last month. Asylum and immigration, the votes, that is 19% saying that's going to be their top issue, so that is up 4 on the month before. That's not necessarily good news for the government. Education, 13%, that's up 1. Housing, 10%, that's down 1. Climate change, 10%, that's unchanged on the previous month. Taxation, so presumably people that were hoping to get some tax cuts, that is up 3. 9% saying taxation up 3. Poverty, inequality, 8%, that is up 3 as well. Lack of faith in politicians, so that's 6% saying that will help them decide the next section. That's down 1. Foreign policy, foreign affairs, 6%. That's up 3. Very few elections are decided on foreign policy, foreign affairs, but one exception possibly is 2005 after the Iraq War. But then again, Labour won that, but it was quite a significant issue for that election. But generally, foreign policy isn't a particularly top-rated issue. Oil, gas policy, 5%, that's unchanged, and 12% say don't know, and that is up 2%. So for Conservative supporters, immigration is their top concern, followed by the economy, followed by health NHS, followed by inflation, followed by taxation. For Labour supporters, the NHS is their top concern, followed by inflation, followed by the economy, followed by education, followed by housing. Very interesting that for Labour supporters, we don't see immigration as even a top 5 rated issue there, whereas for Conservative supporters, it is their top-rated number 1 issue. So, big difference there between the concerns of Conservative and Labour supporters. Right, okay, so who will make the most capable Prime Minister? We see that we've got 26% now saying Rishi Sunak against 35% saying Keir Starmer, so people think Keir Starmer is I think that's 39% actually for Keir Starmer. So that we see, but Keir with a clear lead there over who will be the most popular Prime Minister. So that's a worsening of the position to Sunak when the question was last asked in October of 2023. 31% then said Rishi Sunak, 35% said Keir. So there's been a hardening of people's opinion, in terms of who would make most popular Prime Minister against Sunak and for Starmer. Right, what else can we look at? Does the Conservative government deserve to be re-elected? This is bad news for the government and for the Conservatives. Implies that people really do want a change. 60% disagree that the Conservative government deserves to be re-elected. 19% agreeing with that idea. So, it does imply that the next election is likely to be a change election. Perhaps not completely seal the deal for Labour, though, because 41% are agreeing that Labour is ready for the next government. 36% are disagreeing, so that's pretty narrow, but I've got a slight majority there that think Labour are ready to form the next government, but it's not particularly, but, people think Labour are going to be, are ready for the next government, or that Starmer is really good. It's more the unpopularity of the government than the popularity of the opposition that's going on here, I think. Is the opposition ready to form the next government? Under Keir Starmer, 41% are saying yes, they are. They're agreeing with that. 36% are disagreeing with that idea. Right, okay, hold on. Oh, sorry. Everybody, is the current government competent? So 18% are agreeing with that. 64% are disagreeing with that. That's a slight improvement from Conservatives from when the question was last asked in September 2023, because then 16% agreed and 69% disagreed that the government was competent. So, it's just a little bit of an increase for the government, but it's still a net negative of minus 46% there. This question is thinking about the outcome of the next election. Which of the following, if any, come closest to your view? 18% think the Conservatives have done a good job, and 73% think the Conservative government have done a poor job. The next election is not time for change. 22% agreeing with that. 69% are disagreeing with that. So that's a key finding. Time for change. When a government has been in power for an extended period of time, is always, a strong slogan for the opposition, and we see there that people, 69% think that it is time for a change against just 22% that say it's not time for change. So that's a very encouraging finding for the Labour opposition. And then finally, we've got the Conservative government and the next election. Think about the outcome of the next election. Which of the following, if any, comes closest to your view? The next election is not time for a change. And we've got 22% saying yes, and we've got 69% saying no. So, as I say, that's a strong finding for the government. That's a strong find for the opposition, I should say. And for Labour, right, okay, so that's gone through most of the important data there. I hope you found the video interesting and informative. So it still continues, it has done, really for about 18 months, I think, to look like the election is going to be our next change election. We had a change, last change election of 2010, for that 1997, before that 1979. So we don't get change elections that often, but it does look as though people want to change. You know, that finding about whether or not it is time for change is very, you know, very significant, I think. And it looks as though the 2024 general election is going to be a change election. But the election might not take place until the end of the year. We don't see overwhelming popularity for Sir Keir Starmer, and, you know, possibly the Conservative government could come up with something, but I think it's going to be a struggle for them, you know, to stay in office. They may well narrow the gap over the opposition. You know, the government may well narrow the gap, but I think the gap has got too big. You know, and I talked about this in the monthly tracker videos. I think the gap between Conservatives, Labour got too big in the autumn of 2022, really, for the Conservatives to be able to stop in power. So I think we will have a change election. The question is, how big will the defeat for Conservatives be? How big will Labour's victory be? That is still open to question and up for grabs. But of course, we're going to keep you posted, and we'll have the next opinion poll tracker video looking at voting intention, as well as the prediction for the next UK general election for electoral calculus coming up in February. That will be based on January's opinion polls, and this poll from Ipsos will form part of that, you know, part of that that tracker video and prediction. Right, okay, if you enjoyed the video, please like, share, subscribe, make sure you share everyone to give up. It's been quite a long video, this one, so yes, half an hour. Then again, we only do these, you know, every 4 months or so, so probably won't do this again until maybe April, May, something like that. So, no, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, subscribe if you did, and we'll be back with more vlogs very, very soon. But for this one, that's all now, and thanks for watching.